It started with the rain. Not the usual soft drizzle Seattle was known for, but a cold, relentless downpour that clung to everything. The streets outside their house shimmered under streetlights, and water pooled beneath the mailboxes, reflecting the orange glow like liquid fire. Michael Turner stood by the kitchen window, watching the rain fall. It was 7:23 p.m., a Tuesday night, and his wife, Emily, was late again. The clock's second hand clicked with surgical precision. The dinner he'd made, roasted chicken, asparagus, and mashed potatoes, sat cooling on the table, untouched. Her phone had gone to voicemail twice. She'd said she was staying late for a client. Michael took a deep breath, leaning against the counter. He wasn't the jealous type. Never had been. They'd been married for 11 years. He trusted her, or at least, he used to. But lately, something had changed. It was subtle at first. She laughed less. She scrolled her phone in silence, smiling faintly at something he wasn't part of. She'd started wearing perfume again, the kind she used to wear back when they first met. Now, standing in that quiet kitchen, Michael felt it, a heaviness pressing behind his ribs. A quiet knowing he couldn't explain. The front door opened. Emily stepped in, shaking water off her coat. "God, it's pouring out there," she said breathlessly, pulling off her boots. "You're late," Michael said. His tone wasn't accusing, but his eyes lingered on her too long. "Yeah, I know. Sorry. Meeting ran late, then traffic on I-5 was a nightmare." He nodded. "You eat?" "Grabbed a bite earlier." That stung a little. She used to call him if she wasn't coming home for dinner. Now she just didn't. He watched her cross the room. Her phone buzzed once in her coat pocket, and her hand darted for it faster than he'd ever seen. She read the message and turned away, pretending to hang her coat. Michael looked at her reflection in the window glass, the faintest smile flickered across her lips before vanishing. Something inside him froze. They met in college. Emily was an art major, Michael studied architecture. He used to sketch her while she painted, the way her fingers would smear color on canvas, the little wrinkle that formed between her brows when she concentrated. They were married by 26, moved to Seattle soon after, and bought a small craftsman house near Green Lake. Life was simple. Predictable. But now, 11 years later, Emily was 37, still beautiful, but quieter, distant in ways he couldn't touch. Michael worked as a senior architect downtown. Emily managed client accounts at a design firm. Different worlds, same city. They still slept in the same bed, but even that felt practiced. He noticed the small things first. The new lingerie tags in the trash. A hotel receipt tucked in her coat pocket, with no overnight trip she'd mentioned. And the way she'd started locking her phone. When he'd asked, she'd laughed. "Everyone does that now, Mike. Privacy, you know." But he wasn't stupid. On a rainy Friday in November, Michael came home early. The garage door opened with its usual groan. He parked his SUV beside Emily's empty spot. Her car wasn't there, fine, she worked late sometimes. But there was another car parked across the street. A black Tesla. He wouldn't have noticed it if it hadn't been there again the next night. Same spot. Engine idling. When he'd stepped outside to take the trash out, the Tesla drove off. The third night, he waited. At 9:47 p.m., Emily's car pulled into the driveway. She sat inside for nearly 5 minutes before finally getting out. She looked nervous. Michael stood in the shadow of the porch light, arms crossed. "Long day?" he asked as she stepped out. "Yeah," she said too quickly. "God, I'm exhausted." The Tesla's headlights flashed once at the end of the street, then disappeared around the corner. Emily froze. Just for half a second. He saw it in her eyes, the flicker of panic. On Sunday morning, Michael drove to meet Emily's friend, Rachel, under the pretense of grabbing coffee. Rachel had known Emily since college. She was kind, blunt, and notoriously bad at lying. They sat across from each other in a crowded Starbucks. "So," Michael said, stirring his coffee, "Emily's been busy at work, huh?" Rachel blinked. "Yeah, big project with a client. Keeps her late, I guess." "You guess?" She hesitated. "I mean, yeah. That's what she said." Michael watched her carefully. "Funny thing, I checked her firm's website. That project wrapped 2 weeks ago." Rachel looked away. "Mike, I don't want to get involved." He leaned forward. "Rachel. Please." Rachel sighed. "I'm sorry. She told me not to say anything." The world around him blurred for a second, the chatter, the clinking cups, the music. "So it's true," he whispered. Rachel's eyes softened. "She said she didn't mean for it to happen. That it just did." Michael sat back, staring at the foam in his untouched coffee. "Who is he?" Rachel hesitated, then whispered, "His name's Daniel. He's one of her clients." For 3 days, Michael barely spoke. He went through the motions, work, gym, dinner, but his mind was elsewhere. He felt like a ghost living in his own home. By Thursday, he made a decision. That night, after Emily fell asleep, he quietly took her phone from the nightstand. He knew the passcode. She'd forgotten she once told him. His hands shook as he opened her messages. And there they were. Daniel. Dozens of messages, long, intimate, beautiful in their own sick way. "I can still smell your perfume on me. I wish you'd stayed last night. He doesn't touch you like I do, does he?" Michael scrolled, heart pounding. There were photos, of her at work, smiling, selfies he'd never seen before. One of them, in a hotel mirror, her hair wet, wearing that same perfume he'd smelled weeks ago. He dropped the phone. His world cracked in silence. For days, it rained without pause. Emily noticed his silence but said nothing. She carried on as if nothing was wrong, making breakfast, humming while she packed her bag. He couldn't look at her without seeing him, this Daniel, whoever he was. By Sunday night, he'd memorized Daniel's LinkedIn profile, business address, and even his wife's name. Yes, his wife. Daniel was married, too. That night, Michael sat alone in the living room, staring at the rain-soaked window. The anger had cooled into something darker, something patient. He didn't want to scream. He wanted her to see what she'd done. It was Tuesday again, exactly 1 week since he'd first noticed the car. Emily came home late, hair damp, coat unbuttoned. She looked startled when she saw him waiting in the living room, lights low, dinner untouched. "Hey," she said, setting down her purse. "You're home early." "Yeah," he said softly. "I thought we could talk." Her smile faltered. "About what?" He picked up his phone from the coffee table, opened the photo gallery, and handed it to her. Her face went pale. "Michael." He didn't yell. Didn't move. "How long?" She opened her mouth, closed it again, tears filling her eyes. "How long?" he repeated. 3 months, she whispered. The rain battered the windows. Michael nodded slowly. "Does he make you happy?" Her lip trembled. "It's not like that. I didn't plan it." "Don't," he said quietly. "Don't say it just happened." She sobbed. "I'm sorry." He stared at her, the woman he'd built a life with, and all he could see was a stranger. "Do you love him?" Silence. That silence was his answer. She moved out 2 weeks later. The house felt like a tomb, her laughter gone, her clothes missing from the closet, her toothbrush gone from the sink. He tried to hate her. God, he tried. But at night, he still reached for her side of the bed. Friends said, "You'll get through this." But how do you get through losing the person who still breathes in your memories? One morning, he got an email from Daniel's wife. "I think we should talk." They met at a quiet cafe downtown. Her name was Melissa. She looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from crying in silence. "I found out a month ago," she said, staring into her coffee. "He promised to end it. Said he'd never see her again." Michael nodded. "He lied." They sat in silence. Two people bound by betrayal. When Melissa left, she turned and said softly, "They deserve each other, don't they?" He almost smiled. Maybe. But deep down, he knew, no one really deserved this. Months passed. The divorce papers came through in spring. Michael signed them on a day that, fittingly, was gray and raining. Emily showed up at the courthouse, thinner, paler, her once bright eyes dulled. When they walked out, she stopped him in the hallway. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You didn't deserve any of it." He looked at her for a long time. "No," he said softly. "But I loved you anyway." Then he turned and walked away. Outside, the rain poured harder than ever, washing the city clean, or maybe just trying to. As Michael stood beneath the awning, watching the storm, he realized something profound and cruel. The rain wasn't falling on him. It was falling through him.